We're going to be, in just a moment, we're going to be joined by Mark Genie, our General Manager of Integrations, and Junta de Sauter, Senior Director for Product Management for UiPath Integration Service. I want to give you an idea of the agenda at this point. And I'll also point out that we're going to be doing a Q&A, and this is going to be an interactive presentation. So please use the chat box at any point in time to add in your questions. So what we want to do is talk about, obviously, integration service. We're going to talk about how pre-built components facilitate automation. We're going to talk about, or Mark is certainly going to talk about, Mark Genie, about deploying API application integration patterns, what those are, what those mean in terms of providing end-to-end automation. We're going to talk about how integration service supports multiple users, multiple personas across your company, including IT, the folks in Center of Excellence, RPA developers, and of course, citizen developers. And we're very excited today to talk to you about and show you a demonstration. Hunter's going to do that for not only integration service, but how to build an API-based connector. So at this point, I did say we were going to have a Q&A, but we want to start actually with asking you a question. So I would right now like to move everybody into the Menti quiz room to look at the questions that we have, or rather one in particular that we'd like to show you.
Okay, we'll wait for you guys to confirm that you are in the quiz room. And let's see, please tell us in the chat when you are in the quiz room. Should wait a bit. Just a minute. Okay, I see people are already in the quiz room, so we're okay. Just want to make sure it works. Okay, so the first question is just to get a bit of the feeling in the audience today. It's where are you from and how are you feeling today in the beginning of the session. This is a bit unlike the other quizzes we do in the global sessions. It's not a quiz from the session, it's just a baseline quiz to get a bit of your state of mind and then a bit of data. Okay, so we have Cleveland, Netherlands, Germany, Austin, Charleston. Excited, good, great. Amazing. Okay, I'm very glad we have such good vibes in the session today, and it's good seeing so many of you. I think we can move now to the next slide and the next question. And please tell us, do you currently use integration service within the UiPath Business Automation Platform? And you have 4 answer options. Yes, active user. No, however, I am an Automation Cloud user. No, not an Automation Cloud user. Or no, not a customer. And we'll wait a bit also for you guys to tell us. You can still join the quiz room and answer the question. So at any time you have the data in the chat for entering the quiz room. It's www.menti.com and you have the code in the chat as well. Just copy paste it. It's easier to enter from mobile. Okay. So I see options 2 and 3 are the most popular with the audience. An Automation Cloud user. No, not an Automation Cloud user. Okay, I think we can close the quiz right now and I will switch the screen next to Mark. Thank you very much for participating in the quiz and enjoy the session.
All right. Well, thanks, Christina and Charlie. Appreciate the introduction. And hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Hunter and I are joining you from Denver. I noticed a number of you from some warm locations like Costa Rica and Tampa. I'm jealous, but we're glad to be here with you today. And Hunter and I actually joined UiPath via the acquisition of Cloud Elements, and Cloud Elements was an integration platform as service. We fully embedded that and integrated that, so to speak, into UiPath's product lines just over a year ago. And the adoption and reception from you as customers has been tremendous. I noticed today a number of you are already using integration service. You'll learn about some significant new features and improvements that we've made to the product. And for those of you who are new to integration service, we'll give you a robust overview and demonstration that you'll really be able to get started right away with integration service after this session as well. So, what makes UiPath unique? It's this ability to seamlessly combine APIs and UI into a single automation or a single workflow. And so you've got instead of having to go into an iPaaS, for example, and do your API integration activities, then go into an RPA system and log into that and develop your UI or computer vision automation, you can do all this from a single designer, a single design canvas, all from one product that is already all stitched together for you. We've done all that work through the integration of Cloud Elements into UiPath and with the launch of the integration service product. And so you've got the power of the world's best UI automation capability, the ability to emulate activities of how humans interact with computer screens, and do that with that ease of use and power to be able to access that. But you can combine it with APIs, the performance, the scale, the security of APIs to be able to use the best tool for the best job to automate your process. So, and in many cases, your IT organization may limit access to certain systems via API only. We can accommodate that through this combination into a single product. So that seamlessness of combination of these services is what really makes this a unique offering. And so let's dive in a little deeper into what we mean by the seamless combination of UI and API and what it means for the automation patterns. A typical iPaaS is doing API to API, application API to application API integration. And you're limited in the patterns that you can automate. But there's far more to your process than just what can be done by API to API. Those are very important, but you have other aspects to your processes. You may have purchase orders, invoices being received through emails as attachments to emails. Our document understanding can take a purchase order, invoice, any type of document, structured or unstructured, and extract the data out of that purchase order, for example, the vendor, the payment information, the product information, and then you can move that via API right into your accounting system, such as SAP or NetSuite or whatever system you might be using. So that's what we mean by that document to API pattern. UI robot to API, we already talked about, but that ability for many tasks that you want to emulate how a user is operating and interacting with an application. It might be a proprietary application or other work they need to do for that. That also can be done, turned into a JSON object that can move into the appropriate application via API as well. Then there are other patterns that involve your team members, the people in your company who are executing these processes. And a typical integration platform is primarily doing what we call unattended processes. So those are background processing of API to API. We support unattended and powerful capabilities to have a robot run in the background and execute tasks, but also a robot can run side by side with a user, what we call an intended operation. So that person in your accounting department could be sitting side with a robot who's getting the next open purchase orders and next open payments, and they're validating and processing those payments side by side with a robot, making them more productive. So that's the attended pattern. And then finally, long-running workflows often involve background processing with then steps that involve human interaction, people on your team interacting with that robot to validate or to approve, whatever it might be. And then the process then will continue. And we support those patterns as well. So this range of scenarios that you can use to automate gives the ability to extend beyond just what an API to API can do to really looking at your full process end to end to get the most automation, the highest ROI out of that process. So that's what we mean by that seamless combination of these services. So, and the good news is that integration service is free to use for any automation cloud customer, and that's one of the reasons we asked that question early on. Integration service is a cloud-based service. The benefits of that are we handle the application registration for you, so you don't have to go do that and manage that process. We provide server-based triggers and other capabilities, polling mechanism in the cloud, manage that for you, and then that is available then to for you to use with Automation Cloud, whether it's an on-premises Studio client or you're using our new Studio Web designer that's in preview. All of this is available for you for free with every instance of Automation Cloud. We bundle in a set of API calls, and we bundle in a significant number of API calls that really enable you to accomplish real automation tasks without having to spend more money. And then as you scale, you can buy additional API calls and additional bundles of API calls as these automations scale in your business. Another area that we've been investing in is extending the use of integration service across the UiPath product platform. When we first launched, we were available in Studio, Automation Cloud, and Orchestrator. You'll see us adding support in apps, Automation Hub, our newest designer, Studio Web, Assistant for non-technical users, for their robots to work side by side with them. And the power of the platform is that one connection, so an authentication to an application, one connection can be used across all these products and managed centrally, but leveraged across everywhere in our platform. And you'll see us continue to add more and more products within the UiPath set of applications and products that we support. You'll see us supporting more and more of those and giving you more access and leverage from that integration service. We also have a very significant catalog of pre-built connectors, and this is an ever-expanding catalog. Every month we introduce new connectors, and it's a combination of both enterprise applications such as Salesforce and ServiceNow and DocuSign and Workday, as well as personal applications such as Dropbox and Outlook and Gmail. So that catalog continues to grow and expand and gives you more and more options of pre-built ways to connect to the applications that you use to run your business. So let me dive into just 6 key features of integration service and give you just a little more detail in terms of how it operates and the capabilities we provide. So, and on the left-hand side, in addition to that large library of connectors that we already talked about, we also have a standardized authentication mechanism that enables, whether it's a COE creating an administrator account using an API key, let's say to ServiceNow, or a individual user bringing a personal account via OAuth. You have a consistent authentication experience available throughout all those products that I just showed on one of those previous slides within our platform. So right at the point of a design or runtime, you can authenticate to the connection that is appropriate for your use case. Server-side triggers is a very powerful capability we introduced with integration service. And this gives you the ability for robots to react to changes to your application's data. So a Salesforce opportunity is moved to status closed won. That can kick off a robot to move that opportunity as an order into your finance system. A new employee is added into Workday. That can kick off and trigger an event for a robot to execute an onboarding scenario. So that power of server-side triggers, and Hunter will show that in the demonstration, really unlocks a lot of new automation scenarios for your business. Activity packs provide a uniform experience for accessing what can be sometimes very complex underlying APIs. And I'll share a little more detail of the curation work that we do to make APIs simpler to use for non-technical users, while also providing the power to access the full surface area of APIs that are available within an application. And activity packs are available in Studio and in Studio Web with similar functionality in each. We already talked about the seamlessness and the flexibility of automation, but the other key feature is that governance. Because this is a cloud-based service, all these connections can be managed centrally in Automation Cloud and in Orchestrator. So you can enable, disable connections as necessary. And let's say an employee leaves, leaves your company. Take secure connections to sensitive corporate systems and be able to share those with users as well. All of that is part of the governance that we provide, and we'll show you today in terms of the capabilities that we're providing there. So let's look at integration service in terms of how it's being used, can be used across different sets of users in your organization. So in the center, at our core user base are RPA developers, and now extending to app developers as well. And one of the keys for you as an RPA developer is that ability to access the full range of APIs. Our connectors are not just skimming the surface of the APIs available at an application, but we go deep and give you the ability to invoke and execute any of the APIs that are available at that application, and then use that to build and share automations across your organization. The COE and IT teams, as we mentioned before, that ability to govern connections, and in particular, that ability to provide access to key corporate systems like your human capital system, like a Workday, or accounting systems like SAP, and that create connections using system administrator credentials but then share those connections out to users in your organization is a key part of the capabilities that we provide for that COE and IT team. Securely manage. Governance isn't just about control, but it's about confidently being able to share access to systems and knowing that only the right data is available to the right people in your organization. And then finally, we've really been investing in unlocking the capability of integration service for less technical users, those business users in your organization, those citizen developers. And this is where curated activities and triggers really unlock the power of underlying APIs. A citizen developer shouldn't need to know that I need to execute multiple API calls to get a lead back from, let's say, Marketo. They just want to be able to say, give me all the leads, new leads since last night, and be able to process and work with those. That's what curated activities bring to citizen developers, as well as being able to bring their own connections. When you enable it, if you share a workflow out to an individual user and they want to use their individual Salesforce account, so they're just seeing the opportunities and accounts that they own as a sales rep, they can at runtime enter their credentials and be able to just access their own information. Or you can lock that out and just have them use the system administrator account that you shared as well. But just diving in a little further into the power of curated activities, and this is not only beneficial for a citizen developer or less technical user, but even you as an RPA developer as well, to just make you more productive. And on the right-hand side here, you'll see an example of a curated activity, this create opportunity within Salesforce. You still have the power, as I mentioned before, to access any object in Salesforce using get record, insert record, update record. But we also simplify the most common activities, creating an opportunity, getting a list of accounts, into these curated activities that Hunter will be showing you in a minute, that just bring that productivity up higher and require no knowledge of the underlying API, and make this simpler and more productive experience. And then the same for what we call curated triggers. You still have the ability, right, to create a trigger on any object that can support it, but then we also provide you with the visibility into common events, such as when a new email arrives, kick off a workflow. That's a trigger that's available to you right out of the box, simplified, but still able to filter it for the unique needs of that, let's say, that citizen developer. So unlocking this power and democratizing the ability for integration service to be used more broadly across your organization, but still governed centrally, as we talked about as well. So that's the background on integration service. Let's dive in and have Hunter move into the demonstration. Oh, actually, one more slide, one last thing before we do that. Little Steve Jobs moment there, right? One more thing. The connector builder is our newest capability and integration service, and it's in public preview right now. And what Connector Builder does for you, there's always one more integration, right? There's always one more application you need to integrate to, no matter how large this pre-built catalog gets. So we provide you with a user interface that you can create your own connectors, share those throughout your organization, and then eventually actually share them out with our community and marketplace as well. And do this in a highly productive manner with a wizard that walks you through creating that next connector. So whether it's a proprietary application that you have that has an API that you want to expose through integration service, or another business application that we don't support yet, you can do all of that through Connector Builder, and then leverages all those same platform capabilities that I talked about earlier with the standardized authentication service, the eventing and trigger service. All of that can be plugged in through Connector Builder. So with that, now I will turn it over to Hunter.
Thank you, Mark. That was great. Let me share my screen. All right. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. All right, so I want to take you on a tour of integration service. So as Mark highlighted, we are not just in one product or the other, we're really part of the UiPath platform. So in the next 10-15 minutes, I want to take you on a journey through the different experiences we have available in integration service, whether it is for the RPA developers, COE and IT admins, as well as business users. I want to make sure I can give you a sense of where integration service pops up, how you can use these integrations to build seamless API automations in combination with UI and other processes that you want to automate as part of your UiPath process. So what we're looking at right now is the integration service catalog. So we have a large library of connectors available, which ranges anywhere from CRM applications, ITSM applications, complex ERPs. There's really something for everybody in here. And as Mark just mentioned, if it's not there, you have Connector Builder available to add your own API connector to the catalog, which will then become available throughout the entire UiPath platform. An essential component of the integration service are our connections, which really allow you to provide centralized connectivity across the entire UiPath platform. So when you create a connection to any of the systems that are in here, you will be taken to whatever authentication that system provides, which could be a great OAuth experience that allows you to sign in on the vendor side, or some credentials that we have to gather and securely store in the integration service to make sure that the connection becomes active and can keep on working, so your robots, your automations can run at any time using these centralized connections. In addition, as part of our 23.2 release, we are 2023, we will be launching connection sharing, which is also a piece that Mark mentioned, where you will be able to create connections in different folders, so you can easily share them with other users, as well as with unattended robots alike, and make sure that that connection can be easily tied to your specific robots, to your published automations within the organization. I'll touch a little bit on that more as well as you go to the different pieces of the integration service. So once the connection is created, it will become available in the Studio Designers, Orchestrator, Assistant, Apps, who's currently in a preview for integrations as well, and will be launching the GA later this year, as well as even Automation Hub, where you can now use the Jira connection to integrate your ideas with a Jira project. So you can automatically create different issues in Jira based on ideas being created in Automation Hub. So it's really a centralized service usable throughout the UiPath platform experience. What I'll be focused on today is really on the API automations and building those with our studio experiences. So one of the other things that Mark highlighted before was the ability to manage triggers. So next to connectors, next to connections, we also have the ability to add triggers based on third-party events happening in the application. So in the event here, Salesforce, I want to track whenever a new opportunity is closed or won, we have a new customer on board, I want to trigger off my process, and that process is a premium onboarding flow. So within integration service itself, I can define what we call a disconnected trigger that allows you to track an event, kick off a robot, and make sure that whenever that event happens in the third-party system, your robot is executed and your automation keeps on going. I can also add data filters, and I can say, for example, hey, I only want to kick off this process when a customer comes on board that is a premium customer and the opportunity has premium in the name or whatever field you may want to use that's available to you in your Salesforce instance. These events work on the majority of our connectors, where we can track a series of generic events, like any object, like a new record created, deleted, or updated, whenever we can track these events happening, as well as curated experiences, like in this case, that opportunity that is closed in one. No additional configuration from an end user. Everybody knows what that means, and it's readily available at your fingertips. So when I add this trigger, this process will keep on running. Whenever a new opportunity is closed in one in Salesforce, it will kick off this process flow. Now let's hop over to our Studio desktop environment, because that is still the tooling that most of our customers using integration service use today. So within Studio Desktop, we have all the different activities available, and all the integrations are available through the package manager for all the integration service activity packs that are using these centralized connectors, connections, and triggers as well. Within these activities, you'll see that we have some curated experiences for easy to use actions that are commonly used by our customers for most scenarios, like creating accounts, creating contacts, posting messages on Slack, for example, or interacting with incidents as it comes to a ServiceNow, which are the 3 tools that we will use for this demo scenario. You also have access to all the generic experiences, which gives you access to the depth of what these applications provide. Like in this case, getting any records from Salesforce, because someone can have a very heavily customized Salesforce instance with all custom objects, custom fields that you all want to be able to interact with. All of that is provided to these deep experiences that are available to our most expert users that are familiar with these systems as well. Now let's dive into the process that we created. So I start here directly in our configuration with an event trigger, the same one that I just showed you earlier. This one is just part of my process and will be deployed together with the process. Your robots will not execute until the criteria is matched. So you don't have to build complex logic in your robot. We will match the configuration, we'll match the criteria, we will match the data filters defined. And in this case, when this premium customer comes on board, only then we will kick off your robot. In addition, we are then going to retrieve some opportunity details from Salesforce. This is a good example where I use that generic experience to get any object, right? If I go into this dropdown right here, I can see every object that I have available in my Salesforce instance. This will be different for everybody because your Salesforce may look different than mine. You may have different objects, different fields. So this is really the data that you have available directly at your fingertips using these deep experiences. We're going to retrieve some opportunity details. We use that event ID, the object ID for the opportunity that we found. And then we're going to retrieve all the account details. So we also know who is that account, what is the name of that account. So we can use that variable data within our next steps. So next up, we are going to create an incident in ServiceNow because we want to create an onboarding ticket so our team can start bringing this customer on board. There's some IT changes that we have to make. There's some access we need to provide. This onboarding ticket will be created in ServiceNow so our team can go set up this customer and provide a really smooth experience for this premium onboarding coming on board. So in this experience as well, we have the curation really at work, right? You can see right here, we have lookups to present you with all the users. If you want to set a very specific user account to create these connections, readily available, built into configuration, or you can just add an ID if you happen to know the ID, which you often may not know, but you may get that from a previous step as well. Additionally, we pull information in this case from what are the different urgencies that are available in ServiceNow so we can make it easily configurable. Again, you can select which one you want, or you can put in a more dynamic way by getting that from different steps. We're adding a short description using some of that account data. And then we're going to send a message to Slack where we have selected a channel, a test channel in this case that I created for these demo purposes. And we'll also be adding a message that is using the variable data from this integration from Salesforce, from ServiceNow. So we can add the name of the account, as well as some markup and a link to the incident in ServiceNow that we'll be using so it's easily accessible and we can inform the team about this great customer coming on board, the onboarding ticket being created, and highlighting throughout the org where everybody can find the data for this customer. So let's see this in action. I'm going to run this in debug mode straight into my studio. What's happening now is we are going to simulate that event happening. And actually, before I do that, let me quickly hop over to Salesforce, because obviously I want to show the opportunity we'll be working with. So we got our premium API integrations opportunity. I'm going to mark it here as closed. So we have a new customer that we can truly simulate coming on board as this new customer. So let's run the debug flow. What's going to happen now is we are going to start listening and looking at any recent data for opportunities closed in Salesforce. We're going to retrieve those opportunity details, get the account details, create an incident in ServiceNow, and send that message into Slack. So you'll see everything ran smoothly. It is debug, right? So obviously in a live scenario, this will be published and we'll be listening to that event happening in real time. If I now go over to my Slack, we should see 9:37, which is local time in Denver right now. We have great news. We closed our new onboarding customer, a perfect idea, or API for short, has come on board, and the onboarding ticket was created in ServiceNow. I have the link readily available right here, and I can open it and I can see the new ticket being created live on the spot during this live demo. Now, let's go over what this means for the RPA developer after the process is published. So it hands over to the IT administrator or COE that will be managing these processes in Orchestrator. So if I go to Orchestrator, I have my premium onboarding process defined right here, which I can edit, and I can also override how our users within the org will be interacting with these connections. I can define a connection that's configurable when run for attended scenarios. So the end users, the business users working with this automation can change the connection at the will to their own personal connections. Or I can define a connection hard-coded, predefined for unattended scenarios, or when I want to define as the administrator that this is the connection to use. I have the Salesforce and ServiceNow connectors available here that I defined as being configurable. And if I hop over to Assistant as the business user, in this case, it was all defined as configurable when run. So I can override these connections as the end user with my own personal connections. You'll see in here, we already added the folder and connection sharing support as well, which will be available soon, where you can see that I can now use a personal connection, or I can use a connection from any of the shared folders, like a shared sales account, or maybe a system account that my administrator has created for certain systems that this may be useful for. All right, so from here, let's hop over to what do I do if I want to add something new, a connector that is not existent today, like let's say creating a project in Asana to start an onboarding for our customer success team. So let's hop over back to integration service. So in here, in my integration service, I have Connector Builder available. In Connector Builder, I created an Asana demo connector that gives me access to the Asana endpoints and the Asana APIs. Asana, for those who don't know, is a project management tool, which is often used for projects, creating tasks. It provides some capabilities to easily manage tasks, add them to and assign them to different folks, and make sure that the onboarding process can smoothly be completed for our premium customer. So connector builder is really as easy as adding some configuration to how I want to interact with this connector, which can usually be found into the API docs for the application. I set up authentication, which really means how will others authenticate to this application when this automation or when this connector is published into the catalog. So in this case, we're using an OAuth 2.0 with authorization codes and Pixie, which is security in addition to the OAuth framework. I presented and I added all the technical parameters which no user will ever have to worry about. When this is published, anybody can smoothly connect and will use the authentication mechanism of Asana in this case. I also added our ability to post projects to Asana. So in this case, what we want to do is create a new project when Asana is, or when a customer comes on board. So I have my request fields, which will be the fields that every user will be able to interact with from the studio experiences, from the apps experiences, and anywhere within the UiPath platform. And I have my response fields defined as well for any data that will come back from this exercise. So we can also send a request straight in here and try this out. So in this case, I added a premium customer coming on board. We're executing this API just as easy as clicking a few buttons, setting up some basic configuration, and I'm hooked up and connected to these APIs. If I now go in Asana, you'll see my premium customer right here has just been added, which is a new project that we will be executing and adding to our process later on. Now let's see what this looks like in a Studio Web experience. So for those who don't know, Studio Web is a new product, which is a cloud version of the Studio desktop interfaces. It's tailored towards citizen developers and currently in preview mode, which will be going to general availability soon. Within Studio Web, I defined the same process that you saw in Studio Desktop. So I have, when this event happens, I have my existing opportunity closed one. I have my data filters in an easy to use experience, more tailored towards citizen developers, and really with an additional focus on that curation. I have the same steps of screening opportunities, account details, creating the incident, all in an easy to use manner. So it's not just for RPA experts, developer experiences, but anybody, any business user can start creating their own process using the Studio Web interface. And I also added the use of our custom connector to create a project in Asana. So you'll see here, we have created a connection already. I have my connection available here that I can select, or I can create a new connection straight from here. And I have my objects, in this case, just the projects that we added as a way to interact with Asana to create a new project. You'd also see on the managed properties side, I have all these fields nicely, cleanly available, so I can easily interact as a citizen developer user with anything that was added to this custom connector. I selected a couple of fields to interact with, like adding a name, adding the notes, adding the workspace ID, which is mandatory for any interaction with Asana. And I can now run this process, easily interact, same way like we just saw in the debug mode in Studio Desktop. I can run this flow, create this project in Asana, publish the robot, and start interacting and automating. So from here, let's go back to integration service, because this really concludes the tour that I wanted to give you in the time that was available today. So if you remember a couple of things, connectors, connections, and triggers, base foundation for anything integration service. It's centralized across the UiPath platform. We are bringing integration with sharing of connections to the market for integration service in all consumer experiences in the next month. And on top of that, it's really available throughout the entire UiPath platform. If you come across a connection or an integration that you cannot see, that's not available today, use connector builders, sign up for our public preview, and make sure to try it out. We would love to hear from you and get some additional feedback on all the cool stuff that you want to be building with integration service in our connector builder application. So just to summarize, who's Connector Builder for? It's really for anybody. We have technology partners looking to build connectors for their own applications. We have UiPath customers looking to build bespoke integrations to maybe some applications you use internally, maybe some custom applications that have built historically that expose APIs, or just a very specific use case you're trying to resolve by having to call one single data endpoint that you want to rapidly make available. We also have our community developers contributing to the marketplace, because we want to create a big marketplace, get a lot of connectors sourced from our community, and make sure that those become available throughout our UiPath community for use by anybody. So we can truly create a thriving community with new integrations that can really power your API automation at speed. If you want to use Connector Builder, you do need to be a little bit tech savvy. You're probably an RPA developer, you probably have some good API chops, and you probably need access to some of that knows the endpoint pretty well so you can interact with the data. Once the connector is built, it becomes easily usable across the platform, just like any connector provided by the integration service. So with that, Mark, I'll hand it back over to you.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Hunter, for that the demo. That was excellent. Yeah, and by the way, just as Hunter mentioned with Connector Builder, you know, one of our goals is to really power you as our community to contribute connectors to our marketplace. We'll continue adding more and more functionality, Connector Builder. As you try it out, give us feedback. But we feel like the community is one of the best ways to advance productivity for all of us is by sharing connectors that we build. And we're going to make that process very easy to publish into the marketplace over time. And, not just keep these connectors within your enterprise or in your company as you build them, but get that sharing so we can make everybody more productive and really grow that catalog significantly. And one of the things you can count on with Connector Builder is it'll follow a consistent contract. So it'll behave just like the first party connectors that we're building as you use the Connector Builder services. So you can have a lot of confidence in what is shared throughout the community and the marketplace through that as well. The second theme of where we're advancing integration services, as I mentioned before, that curating activity extensions. And this says for citizen developers, but it's not just for citizen developers, right? Our goal with curation is to really leverage the telemetry, how you're using integration service, which APIs are you invoking in an application, and then the most common ones, make those easier and easier to access. We don't want to dumb down the service. We want to give you the full capability to dive deep, but you also will continue to advance these simplified activities for you as well. We're evaluating additional deployment options, and so it's something we're doing work on to look at and say, do we deploy on a full on-premises with integration service, potentially some other new approaches that we could consider? We're going to be doing some inside focus groups, and encourage you to join those as well, as if you've got input, and you'll be able to find that through the Insider program, as well as we're looking at deployment options. We already showed how we're extending the use of integration service more broadly across the UiPath product portfolio, so you can leverage that one connection everywhere. And then last but not least, we'll keep building new connectors, expanding that catalog. Let us know, and love in here in the chat as well, applications that you'd love to integrate to, things you want to connect to, so we can also inform our roadmap with that also. So with that, I'll turn it over to Charlie.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you, Hunter. That was a very good presentation and demo. And before we go to Q&A, and please feel free to continue to add additional Q&A questions, I'd like to just cover some next steps. Let's go to CinemaScope here. Well, that's not what I wanted. This is called a review, by the way. Alrighty, won't be long now. Thank you for your patience. Firstly, we recommend, in terms of a next step, looking at our original white paper that examines the relationship or convergence between automation and iPaaS, as well as best practices for API-based integration as an integral part of your end-to-end automation. Secondly, we invite you to join our Connector Builder public preview. See how easy it is to unlock the value of third-party applications. The link or the barcode takes you immediately to the top page with the header building your customer connector. And then there's, of course, our integration service website to further your immersion in terms of API-based automation. And for those of you who came late or who have colleagues in a different part of the world, this is a live presentation, live and loving it. And we're going to do the same presentation next week here, and feel free to, right now, use your cell phone to capture the barcode and register for that, or let your colleagues know as well. And we also want to talk about Dev Dives. Dev Dives is a new program which is targeting or purposely for developers and citizen developers. It's about helping to build automation. It's about helping to make your automation smarter, and also make your automation more easily accessible. So that is something we'd like to share with you, and you again can use the barcode to find out about that series of webinars. And before we wind up exhausting the battery on your cell phone with all the barcodes, let's go to the Q&A. And we appreciate your participation in this. There are a number of questions that have already been answered, but let's just do a quick recap of some of them. For starters, what does it take, Mark and Hunter, to actually get started with integration service if you haven't been using it?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, you need to be an Automation Cloud customer. Once you have a tenant of Automation Cloud, on the left-hand side, you'll see integration service available to you, and it's as simple as that. Click on integration service, you'll see the catalog of connectors that Hunter just showed, and you can get started integrating right away. There's no incremental fee at that baseline of API calls.
Yeah, and I see, Sebastian, you raised your hand for a question as well, so let's go to a live one.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, so first of all, congratulations. I think this product really resonates with what the industry is looking for. Very specific question, and actually two questions. One is on the filters. When I'm setting my connection and defining my trigger through integration services, I've been having problems tying back the fields that I need to filter to the actual fields on the product. Let me give you a quick example. For Box, I want to trigger automation when a new file is created on a certain folder. I haven't been able to find that filter. So is there any documentation for those kind of use cases? And my second question is about also on the trigger side, can I define a total amount of processes that are going to be triggered when that integration flow executes? So far, what happens is I'm been dropping like 100 files on a folder, and I get 100 new processes created. Can I limit that? Thank you.
No, great question, Sebastian. The main limitation will come by having those filters in place, right? Because if you have the right filters, and if you can define which files you truly want to trigger that process for, that it will immediately drop down the rate at how many robots you're triggering, because that filter will make sure that a robot is not triggered when the criteria is not matched. So what I recommend, Sebastian, I took a note on the site. I want to put you in touch with our product manager for Box specifically, so we can dive into some of the challenges that you've seen and make sure we can resolve those. And if there's any functionality missing, we're on a big mission to improve our connectors to make sure we can meet your use cases. So this is perfect timing. So if you wouldn't mind sending me your email privately, then I can put you in touch with the PM, and we can get on a call and hash this out.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll do. Thank you.
Of course.
On what kind of license does a full integration process use? That's the question verbatim.
Yeah, I responded to that one in the chat. I may not have answered it properly, but integration service is available on all license types. So it is provisioned across all license types. So if whoever asked that question, if there's more specifics that I didn't answer in the chat, please raise your hand or just feel free to ask. But want to make sure we handle whatever that concern is. You can run the robots. You can attach. You can run the integration service process or the process that you create just like you would any other process. So you can attach it to whatever robots you want to use, whether they're automation cloud serverless approaches. But if there's additional information you need, just please ask.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Mark.
Yes. So
Yeah.
hi. Currently, we are using Workado for the benefit of having multiple API integration processes running at the same time. So I was curious, how is that within UiPath? You stated that it can run on a attended or unattended, but then that license is taken for that time being, right? Or since it's all background, can you run multiple asynchronously? That was my question.
Yes, you can run multiple asynchronously. So you can run whatever number of robots you license to. So I think, similar, we and you can have a pool of robots that you're just using on demand as well. So you don't have to pre-license them. So you can use them as you go. But yes, there's no limit to how many. It's part of the power of UiPath platform is the robots can run unattended in the background, asynchronously, simultaneously across. We have customers running, hundreds of thousands of robots simultaneously, right? In addition to, if you want to have it run attended side by side with an individual user in a more synchronous fashion, that you can do that as well. But you have both scenarios.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for asking the question. I appreciate it.
As
We'd
we're
love to talk to you if you're looking at some scenarios where you think integration service could fit, and you want more information, just let us know, Mark.
I will match you on LinkedIn.
All right, awesome.
By the way, both the recording and the deck will be available in a follow-up email. And on the event link for everyone who's registered for this, in addition to today's attendees, we're coming up to the very end of the top of the hour. Are there any additional questions that you would like to volunteer live? Going, go on. Any other comments, Hunter or Mark, before we go?
Well, I just would like to thank everybody for your participation. We really enjoyed it and all the questions along the way. It was a fantastic interactive audience. And, thank you, Christina, for just setting this up and the wonderful turnout from community. It's great meeting you all.
Great,
Yeah,
very much.
same from my end. Thank you guys for all joining and keep integrating.
Exactly. Thank you very much. Talk to you soon. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.